they're proposing. Go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, I'm happy to second that proposal. I wasn't at the public meeting myself, but I heard commentary on Radio Foil where members of the public were saying it was a tick box exercise. So I think it would be useful to have DFI here, where it certainly won't be. Thank you.
Through you, Chair, members were happy to write and invite DFI officials to come and do the committee if that would be helpful.
Thank you, Karen, and yourself now, Karen.
Yep, through you, Chair. Members, it's just to update you in relation to members will be aware of ongoing engagement over the years with DFI in terms of the structure of Queen's Quay. And it's just to update members that they have advised us today that they intend to do some load testing along the quay in advance of Halloween on Sunday. So members, that will be undertaken and we'll accommodate that on our car parks, etc. And then we will consider any implications in terms of Halloween. And then if there's anything further in relation to that, we can update members accordingly. And then members, in terms of the longer term implications, we'll bring a further report back to members in due course in terms of Queen's Quay and any updated position from DFI in relation to that. Thank you.
Alderman Hussey.
Is that in addition to load testing that's already taken place in the past?
Yeah, they do it regularly, so they've just advised us today they intend to do it on Sunday.
Councillor Farrell.
Just a brief question on that, Karen. Does that mean the car park will be open for business as normal, or will it be closed?
It'll be, my understanding is they do it in they go along, so we may have to close parts of the car park along the river for very short periods of time, but it doesn't take an awful long time, so it won't be all day.
Thank you, Karen. The next item on the agenda is likely welcome.
Chair, sorry, I indicated online there.
Sorry, Alderman Middleton, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I think most people online probably have had the same issue where the video didn't come on until 4:04. So we haven't heard any of the start of the meeting, and it also wasn't on YouTube until 4:04. So there's no sound or video. So anyone who's online doesn't know what's happened at all up until this point. Just wanted to let you all know. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Middleton.
Chair, just advise I had the same problem. I'm assuming everybody else did too.
We recorded that. Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is to welcome residents from Eglinton and Newton Stewart from the Blueprint project here today. So Kathy from the council and Stephen and Gillian and Rosemary, you're very welcome.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, so I'm Kathy Burns. I'm the Climate and Biodiversity Lead in Council, and I'm just going to quickly introduce our delegation here from Eglinton and Newton Stewart. Just a bit of background, I suppose, as to the project that we're going to talk about today. It's called the Blueprint, and it was a Creative Ireland funded project that looked at using arts and creativity to engage flood affected communities. We worked with our partners in UCC to create a toolkit for how this kind of approach can be used in the future when it comes to climate action and local communities. And the project was led locally by the Playhouse, and we've Paula Larkin here from the Playhouse today as well, representing the project. So it was a year-long journey. We had an artist in residence working with the communities, and I'm going to let them tell their own story and give a bit of background as to their experience. Next slide, please, Sean. Okay, just quickly, a bit of background. I don't need to remind members of why this issue is extremely important and critical to our local communities. And we're already seeing the effects of climate change and will continue to do so with wildfires, flooding, storms, heat waves and drought. And we're seeing the increase in temperatures both globally and locally. And next slide, please, Sean. And so I suppose one of the stark realities is the flood risk that's felt right across Northern Ireland and locally, and we're going to touch a that later on. I was at a recent meeting, members, with the Regional Community Resilience Group, at which the Met Office presented some stark facts and figures around the increasing likelihood of storms, the intensity of the storms, which I'm sure you're all very aware, even just last weekend, and the increasing likelihood of flooding for our local communities. So that just sort of sets the context in terms of the science behind all of this, and the data that sits behind it. And I suppose just on that, the idea behind the Blueprint project was to move beyond the data and the science and the stats, which I know you've all heard me talk about, and really talk about the human impact and what this means to real people in their daily lives. So next slide, please, Sean. So I'm going to hand over to Rosemary now from Eglinton to talk about the experience, Newton Stewart, from Newton Stewart to talk about the experience of our communities and as part of the Blueprint project.
Thank you, Kathy. So my name is Rosemary Murphy and I'm from the Newton Stewart area. So in early 2023, Newton Stewart Heritage Group was seeking to secure funding to restore the local chapel St Eugene's, Glenorch. As a committee, we predicted the potential funders were liable to ask us to explain how we might address the threat of flooding given the church's location close to the rivers Oncaloo, Struil and Mourne. Parishioners had recollections of flooding in our area as far back as 1929, again in 1954, 1970, 1987 and 2017. It was very evident that there was an increase in flood frequency. There was a discussion then on whether or not climate change might be a contributing factor. The committee at that time engaged with Kathy here in her role as Climate Programme Manager within Council. We felt that she might provide the statistics that may or may not evidence our need for flood alleviation measures to the church. As it happened, our timing coincided with this upcoming All-Island Climate Ireland project Blueprint that Kathy was to be involved with. The Blueprint project brief was to engage flood-affected communities in Derry City and Strabane District Council area in an artistic co-creation process to share and exchange their life experiences around flooding and climate adaptation. Participants were to use a medium of what was termed a soundscape. A Google search provided insight on what exactly this soundscape might mean. It told us that in creating a soundscape, we would be devising an acoustic environment, one depicted, in our case, flooding, and its impact as perceived by us as humans. We would seek to portray the lived experience of those living in Newton Stewart through the medium of sound. We were to be partnered with the people of Eglinton. We knew that we had in common some things in common. Just like ourselves, Eglinton's floods had featured in BBC and UTV news programmes over a number of years. And just like ourselves, they were struggling to find the vocabulary to enable them to recruit participants in this newfangled concept that they didn't understand themselves. We commend those who joined us in trusting a process. It was maybe a measure of our mutual resilience and willingness to give anything a try that we engaged with the project. Or maybe it was desperation. We did not at that time fully comprehend the scale of the learning that would be derived from the project. At the outset, there were no flood resilience ambassadors in either Newton Stewart or Eglinton. They were mainly, were however, a number of flood survivors. Our primary targets for the project were those who felt that they have been impacted by floods in recent memory. It would not be difficult to identify them. We knew that they had featured briefly in the media for at most a day or so in 1987 or again perhaps in 2017. After that, they were largely forgotten. Typically, locals were reluctant to engage in what they perceived to be an art piece commemorating an ongoing disaster. In some respects, we shared their hesitation. We recognised the capacity we had to disappoint, for we ourselves weren't sure that any art form could counteract harm of the scale that had been encountered. Sally Walmsley was appointed the artist who was to work with us. We were told that she would help create our soundscape. She proved to be talented in her creative work, but also skilled in her ability to have us swim effectively into the unknown. We'd nodded alongside her, pretending to understand her process. She inspired us, encouraging us to be creative about some of the town's darkest days. In turn, we provided her with sounds, lots of sounds, all kinds of sounds. Some unique sounds, sounds of the Mourne River, sounds of our spoken word, sounds of Glenorch's Chapel's choir, and sounds of Newton Stewart's cattle mart on a Saturday. Through time, we learned that sound was the optimum medium to provoke emotion, and we sought to represent. While the physical impact of flooding was evident to us, we knew that we could only learn from those displaced by its impact in the past. Those who had subsequently lost hope of living in a safe place, those who had lost hope of being able to secure affordable home insurance, those who had given up on hoping for summer that wouldn't bring at least the fear of flood damage and the worry of going on holiday for a few days, at the same time monitoring the weather forecast from afar before and throughout their time away, and wondering if when the time of the inevitable next flood comes, will they be able to access the key to the sandbags that might serve in some small way to reduce the threat. The flood reminiscence recordings we made allowed people to be heard. Without exception, they recalled fear and in turn the kindness of near neighbours and in the aftermath. Largely, they spoke of abandonment by services who they thought might have been able to help. Long-term trauma brought about by flooding had taken its toll on the mental health of many. Most had not been heard before. They had held their own story close. In the course of the Blueprint project, we wanted that what we'd heard to be listened to by those who could implement change. We continue to hope and trust that there's a process that will bring about an improvement for these people. As participants in the project, we increased our own knowledge and awareness of climate harm and the need for adaptation. Some might see our little pieces of adaptation in Newton Stewart and Eglinton as having very little impact on a much bigger picture. Participants in the group acknowledged, however, that it is never good enough to do nothing, believing the problem to be unsurmountable. Engagement with our colleagues in Eglinton was a worthwhile privilege. Our exchange visitors afforded opportunities for experience sharing and joint learning. We walked with them and we talked with them. We looked over bridges together. We shared stories depicting the importance of community connection and the role that it plays, when much else is at risk of being swept away. The importance of lobbying to make things better will remain a constant and both places tireless to devise means of protecting our place. Many families in Newton Stewart continue to be largely unsupported, uncertain and isolated in the aftermath of even more recent episodes of flooding. As a consequence of the Blueprint project engagement, Newton Stewart's Three Rivers Resilience Group was born. People in both flood-threatened communities share a common desire to have their voices amplified at policy level. We recognise the value of the multidisciplinary input from the Blueprint project presented with partners in science, the arts and government, providing a diverse range of perspective. We know that climate data is not enough to communicate risk. Spoken and sung words evoke emotion, empathy, and we hope care towards communities in need of support. We hope that our engagement with the Blueprint process will encourage dialogue and exchange between policymakers and elected officials so that we can bring about a meaningful pathway to enhancing our climate resilience.
Okay, thank you, Rosemary. And so some of the outputs of the project, as I mentioned before, was a toolkit, but more importantly was the artwork itself. So there was poetry, which was performed at the Guildhall by Gillian and a few others. There was the song piece, there was the choir, and there was the soundscape, and we held events in the Playhouse and in the Alley Theatre, so where visitors and members of the public could come along and experience the art piece itself. The next slide, hopefully Sean will play okay, is the choir and the song piece that came out of the project, just to give you a flavour, members.
Put it to me in the kitchen, I'll brush it out the door. Put it to me in the kitchen, I'll brush it out the door. Put it to me in the kitchen, still and burning skies. Water, riding out, floating away, all gone. Put it to me in the kitchen, I'll brush it out the door. Goldilocks and the creepers, 12:25, never reassuring as can. Turn with thee, and look at the car, all of a sudden the stars flooding through, steel structures and strand, very dead and toss, Goldilocks, 7 phantoms, her dresses round. Put it to me in the kitchen, I'll brush it out the door. Put it to me in the kitchen, I'll brush it out the door. Put it to me, it's our life, our house. It will happen again. People still change nature. It will happen again. What's going into water, what runs off fields. It will happen again. Water can't take much more. It will happen again. It changed our relationship with the earth. How prepared are we for next time? Put it to me in the kitchen, I'll brush it out the door. Put it to me in the kitchen, I'll brush it out the door. Put it to me in the kitchen, I'll brush it out the door. Put it to me in the kitchen, I'll brush it out the door. Put it to me in the kitchen, I'll brush it out the door. Put it to me in the kitchen, I'll brush it out the door.
Okay, so that's just one of the artistic outputs. There was numerous others, as I mentioned, the poetry and the sound installation as well. So I'm going to hand over now to Gillian from Eglinton. If you want to move to the next slide, please, Sean, who will talk about her own experience, and then we'll hand over to Steve.
I'm a resident of Eglinton Village. My home flooded in 2017 and I was out of my house for about 4 months. And then we had a near miss again in 2022. I went away to Enniskillen for the day and there was no weather warning, there was no advance warning and I couldn't get back in time. But thankfully my mum was able to come and put the sandbags out. This project then came along and I was thinking, I don't have time for this. I don't want to open that box of trauma again. And the first day was at the Playhouse, and at one stage we were sitting on the floor making things with wool and paper and wee bits and bobs. I thought, what am I doing here? Like, this is, I don't have the capacity to do this, and I don't want to open all those horrible memories again. But the artist was really good. Sally was fantastic. Scary that she said she didn't know what the end thing was going to be. I thought we were going to like build something with plasticine and display it in the village or something like that. Didn't realize it was going to be this audio thing. But the project was actually really therapeutic. There's only 2 good things came out of the flooding: the friendships that I've made with other people in the community that I didn't know before, and this project. As part of the project, I got to go to Ballina and Crossmalina to see a village, areas of similar size that had similar problems with flooding, and it was really great to get out of my community, see another community that was maybe a wee bit more advanced, and it gave us hope because they had a flood alleviation scheme designed. They were just waiting for it to be implemented. And it was great to see that the flood alleviation schemes were designed around people and communities, not about just restricting the river, but the water was being overflowed to a different area. There was lakes, walkways, it was created space for nature as well as space for the river. So I would encourage anybody to participate in these type of projects. It's a hard sell, art, and something very traumatic, but I would say it was really, really good and really worth it. We've, like when Sally suggested we were going to stand up in the Guildhall and say a poem, I was like, no chance. And then we were asked to go to Dublin to the Creative Ireland conference, and we were at the point of, do you want us to perform our poem? So it gave us great confidence in ourselves. You know, it was very much about our own personal resilience as well as acting as a community. So it was really good. And I suppose things like these projects are as good as they are funded for. And I know there was external funding brought in for this. It would just be great if there was a more consistent approach to funding these things, that it's not that sort of stop-start thing. I don't know where the money for these kinds of things comes from, but I can say without a doubt this project definitely helped me get over the trauma of flooding and building my own personal resilience and making connections in the community, the wider community, down as far as Ballina, with people who just get what you're saying when you're saying it, and you don't need to describe how it feels to have water just coming into your house and being out of your house. And as a result of that night of the flooding, I've been engaged in stuff now that has nearly taken over my life, and that's what flooding does, until you can get to a point where you feel safe again in your home. And unfortunately for many people, we're just not there yet.
Hi, I'm completely at my depth here, so be gentle with me. I live alongside the river in Newton Stewart, and sometimes in it. In August 2017, we allowed ourselves to go to bed. It had been a long day of rain, incessant rain. We weren't in bed longer than half an hour, and we heard the garden wall that we'd built to keep the children in the garden, not the river out, was tumbled by the river, the flow of the flood. It was an extremely long and frightening night. But the next day, I realised that that was only the start of a nightmare. That, you know, the only asset that you can pass on to your children is worthless. You can't insure it, or if you can insure it, my insurance premium renewal last year, someone quoted me £3,000. You know, the nightmare from 2017 till now, you know, it's a continuing nightmare. We met with ex-mayor Lillian at the start of the year, who told us that we mattered, and the 2018 report into the flood told me that I didn't matter. We were told, quite rightly so, that there was no scope for infrastructure solutions in Newton Stewart. There's not a high enough population density. I represent about 12 households and 3 clubs, associations in Newton, all of which could have gone out of business after that flood. And you're talking about an isolated community that feels lonely. It's at the edge of the council area. My father-in-law used to have a joke that it's actually tarmacked all the way from Derry to Newton these days, so you can actually get there. So at the start of this year, we started a resilience group. We've kind of blundered about in the dark. We've met with DFI Rivers, Roads, NI Water, council members. We've had brilliant support from politicians. Derek's over there, he's one of them. You know, we've had the best of support from a local MP, MLAs, councillors. We arranged a meeting. We got DFI Rivers, Roads, NI Water and the council in one of our club rooms. And ultimately, So the feeling is there's nothing much for us. You know, that our only hope is maintenance, which the 2018 report, it kind of angered me because it basically told us that the maintenance hadn't been performed, but that we really will do it this time. And if anything that this year has taught me is that, you know, apart from the people that I've mentioned, we've met with reps from DFI, Rivers and Roads, yeah, they're all decent people. They all want to do their best for you. And they're all strapped for cash. Before the last flood, I was trying to get the gullies cleaned in the road I live in. And I found out that for the whole of the northwest area, there are 2 gully cleaning machines, one of which is off the road because it keeps failing its MOT. Where do you go from that? You know, it's kind of not good enough. You know, the only way out appears to be grant funding. You know, not normal. I call it normal council and departmental budget. They haven't got the money. You know, I did a radio interview at the weekend, and I referred to Eglinton and Drumahoe as the big smoke. You know, because we are minuscule. And where's the hope? You know, where is the hope? You know, it does sometimes feel like we're in a hopeless, lonely position that I've referred to as effective net abandonment. And that's pretty emotive. But I believe that's what it is.
Thank you, Steve. Members, I'm going to hand over now to Gillian just to finish off. Sean, if you could just put the next slide on. Thank you.
I just want to put out a few asks to see if council have the appetite to help us in some way, and also just a few thanks. We would ask that there would be greater alignment between some of the council initiatives and adoptions, like the rights of nature, climate action strategies, emergency responses, the reviews of the flooding that have been mentioned, with planning decisions, because a lot of those initiatives are great, but they're undercut then by planning decisions, and that just is defeating the purpose of things like the Blueprint project, when you can build individual resilience and community resilience, but the actual flood resilience is being limited by planning decisions. We'd also like to encourage DFI Rivers, off the back of the event on Friday, to come down to Eglinton and possibly the Ivy Mead. I know they're not here today, and if there's any hope for anything in Newton Stewart, to come and engage directly with the communities. 2 o'clock on Friday in Derry wasn't a great time for people who are working to engage in that, and it felt like a bit of a tick box thing. I know somebody says that already. At the bottom of my garden, for 265 metres, there's 2 walls being proposed. I don't know what, they couldn't tell me what height that wall is, and they couldn't tell me that if the water gets over the wall in a flood event, how does it get back out again? And I would be worried that I'm going to be sitting in a lake for longer. So that detail wasn't there on Friday, and maybe it hasn't got to that stage yet. But I think there's questions about what this is going to look like and how it's going to function, that need in the community at a good time when people can do that. Maybe in an evening. I know that mightn't suit the DFI people, but it would suit the majority of the community. And to look at other projects, like the one we've seen down in Ballina has great space for the river, space for the environment. It's not these big concrete walls. Like, I go over the bridge at Strabane and you look upstream and it's just 2 big concrete walls. Eglinton doesn't need that. When we went to Newton Stewart, their flood banks are used for recreation, they're used for walks, people have a connection with the river. You go to Eglinton, you wouldn't even see the two rivers that are there, and now we're going to put up these walls to hide them even further. At least I can go down to the river now and see things that are happening on it. I wouldn't be able to see the river. Trees would have to get chopped down to build these walls. And I'm only talking personally about the bit out my back. There's other parts of the village that have flood alleviation measures that I haven't directly got involved with. So I think it would be good just for the whole community to have that time directly with DFI to see exactly what these proposals mean, and alignment with all the good initiatives that council are doing, with the planning decisions that are being made, and also that the ask is that long-term sustainable resilience projects, and nearly like a roadmap. I'm an Eglinton Community Resilience Group, and there's that many groups and abbreviated groups that I have no idea where we sit, who we feed into, who's supporting us, what happens in the days, minutes, weeks, months after a flood, and who we can rely on for support. Just the mechanics of it's very confusing for us as ordinary residents who have full-time jobs and a whole lot of other stuff going on. So a bit of a roadmap about how that community resilience works would be good as well. And also to thank the Playhouse, Creative Ireland, Kathy, and the artist and all the people who made the blueprint project happen. It was really, really good. Thank you.
Yeah, I asked Kathy just to make one other point. Wherein I spoke earlier, it was totally negative. There are positives, and one of the positives that's come out of our resilience group is community. And you know, water flooding is not political. And in our resilience group, we have cross-representation from councillors. We have cross-representation in the clubhouses that we've met in. And one of the brilliant things about starting this resilience group is we've got Ulster Scots people going into GAA club rooms and mixing with Ardstraw Football Club. You know, you've got people going into other people's club rooms who probably would never have darkened those doors. You know, and it is, I think it's a ray of hope. You know, that people. I think it's a sign of the strength of feeling that people have been willing maybe to sort of, you know, bypass their fears of the unknown, of people that they might have thought they didn't like. I just wanted to say something positive.
Okay, members, so thank you very much for your time here this afternoon. I'll pass back over to the chair.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you, Rosemary, and thank you, Gillian and Stephen. I was very lucky to be at the Playhouse the night that you presented the poem and the song, you know, and it's such an emotive topic. And as Gillian knows, I'm very friendly with Gillian, and I was there at the two floods in Eglinton, and it's just unthinkable. I have never been flooded myself, you know, but to see what the damage it does to the people, you know, and the damage that it has done thereafter, you know, that you get the phone calls, I get the phone calls once the heavy rain's coming, you know, you have pensioners in Eglinton that are worried every day that there's heavy rain, there's yourselves are worried every time there's heavy rain, and it's that trauma that is still there to this day and will always be there, you know, until, so the Blueprint project helped up in that. But I think you are right, we have a lot to do, you know, going forward. The Alderman Middleton, you want to come in?
Yes, Chair, but I believe first.
Sorry, I'll update first of the stuff that we had asked for before, what the Jews hadn't, that the people online hadn't heard. So basically what I'd asked for in chairperson's business was that we were to invite the DFI into either a special ENR meeting or the ENR meeting to present what they presented at Boilerina that day on Friday, because a lot of people were frustrated that they weren't able to get their questions put forward. And basically the person stood up and he talked for about 15 minutes and he took no questions. And then we went over then to the contractors who had drawn up, as Gillian said, the diagrams of walls going around the village. So that is what we'd asked for. But now going on what Gillian has asked for, we will add that to the letter, Karen, if that's possible. And
To get through, chair members, happy to do that if everyone's happy.
And that was really all. But sorry, Councillor Devine, you could come on now.
Chair, thank you very much for letting me come in on this. I'm not a member of committee, but I did want to comment on it. I want to thank those who spoke, Rosemary, Gillian, Steve, and Kathy. Thanks very much for sharing your story with us and for presenting to us today. Well done on a really great project that I suppose helped you to have your say and to have your voice heard. And I have to say, I just felt that piece that you presented, the choir, was really, really powerful. I suppose we see on the news the destruction that flooding leaves behind, but what we often miss is the human cost of that flooding and the impact it has on residents and on communities. So we have met with the Three Rivers. I suppose I'm involved mainly with the Newton Stewart side of it, and we've met with the Three Rivers Resilience Group, and they have shared their stories with us on the impact of that flooding in 2017. And I have to say, it was very emotive and very powerful. So there are residents on that group, and there's also sporting groups and community organisations, and the impact on all of those, the anxiety, the fear, the worry, and the emotional scars that it leaves behind after the flood. And I know you've already touched on that today. I suppose the residents are considered maybe in the reports, but they felt that the impact that it had on some of the sporting groups and the community groups there is something that maybe has been underestimated, and the amount of people of all ages that avail of those facilities, and volunteers, I suppose, working tirelessly to build up communities, and to see that devastation, and they just did not know where to turn after it. And so that does have a really big impact. I am really heartened to hear Gillian talk about hope and personal resilience. And I was actually glad that Steve did come back in to talk about the sense of community, because that's something that I felt in our meetings, and we've met with the resilience group a number of times, that for me, that there was a real sense of community and coming together in that group, cooperation and breaking down barriers. And that was something that I took away from it that I thought was really powerful and hopeful as well. As a group, Sinn Féin, we have been working with the Three Rivers Resilience Group, and I do want to reassure them that they have not been abandoned, that we will continue, and we are continuing to lobby on their behalf. So thank you very much for coming in and presenting to us today.
Thank you, Councillor Devine. Alderman Middleton.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in. I hope there's not an echo anymore. It sounded quite bad on my end, but Chair, I just want to thank all those who spoke to us today on behalf of the DUP for your honesty and for sharing just your true experiences. And just to begin with, I think I speak for everyone when I say we are genuinely so sorry to know of the devastating and stressful experiences you have faced as a result of flooding. Many of us, myself included, be on the ground during these events. We know how truly traumatic the experience is for you all, as well as how stressful the aftermath is. As a rural councillor for the Faughan ward, I am acutely aware of the mental, emotional, physical and financial stress that flooding in particular has brought to many, and I would go as far as to say, in fact, too many of you, our constituents. I am so thankful that you got to be part of this project and the experience you have had, which clearly has provided emotional and social support systems as well as bringing forth very, very important resilience groups. Thank you for providing your very strong presentation, each of you, and for providing a vital message about the need for alleviation methods to be found district-wide and urgently. I was also at the meeting at Foyle Arena and I shared your concerns and I heard your voice. I'll even go as far as to say it was actually quite hard to hear the official speaking. He had no mic and the time of day just maybe wasn't ideal. So I'm glad to hear that that was brought forward in Chairperson's business, and I certainly support that. I just want to say finally, just to note, I found the video with the choral performance very, very emotional to watch. I'm not ashamed to say I was shedding a couple of tears, and I feel quite emotional speaking about this now. Just many of us rural councillors, we work on flooding every week, whether it be gullies or out with sandbags or knee deep in water with you. So that was really, really emotional. And I believe that this video should be shown far and wide. The message is clear. On a final note, as I have said many, many times in this chamber, we recognise that you, the residents, do not want us playing political football with this issue. You want us to be united to find solutions. And I am certainly committed, and I hope everyone else is committed to doing all that we can to ensure that this is the case. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Middleton. Alderman Kerrigan.
Thank you very much, Chair, for allowing me in. And I do thank the individuals for coming in there, representing the various groups there, and for the presentation there. I've met Steve before down in the various events which we've held in Vaughan's home, and we've had those discussions. And I do take on board his comments there in regards to, particularly his first comments, and both times he spoke in regards to, there did seem a level of disappointment, and that we were all singing off the same hymn sheet, but we weren't getting the response we were looking for, effectively from DFI. But it did bring the community together, and it was one of those things that maybe is lacking in this lower end, or not lacking, but it's one of those things that has brought groups together that have had to come together, because there may not be necessarily the lead in regards to council that there would be within the city for when these events happen. But so as I say, it's good to get the groups together, and it's good the project that has been undertaken and your presentation that has been brought. And again, that fear that must be there within your minds when there is rain forecast and heavy rain forecast, or there's a saturation of ground, even with not as heavy a rain, it's just, the vast majority of us are not living in that regard. And so to have that fear the entire time that there's a bit of rain coming, or a weather forecast, and as I say, it's such a difficult thing, and unless you're in that position, because I know even in the recent storm Amy there, I've had contact and getting sandbags to nursing homes, to sheltered accommodation, and the fact, and some of your cases there, the sandbags are no good. It's not a viable alternative. So as I say, it's thank you again for the presentation, and it is a thing there which I have pushed, and I said to Steve that I would push it in regards to the work there through the Drainage Council. And your point has been made in relation to, there's only 12 residential properties in the Newton Stewart area that effectively floods when the river comes out. But it's the impact on the community impact, the cumulative community impact, because you have Ardstuff Butler, because you have Neve Owen, GAC, because you have the Shaw Memorial Hall, you have the council facilities with the recycling centre, you have the livestock mart, you have those which have such an impact on Newton Stewart and the wider community, which are also affected. And it's getting the proper weight placed on the community assets which are affected, not just the residential, to see, will there be a change in DFI's decision? And that's one which we are fighting and which we will continue to push, and that needs a legislative change. But we'll do what we can in that regards to see if we can get anything move forward in regards to Newton Stewart. But again, wish you all the very best, and thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, Alderman Kerrigan. Alderman Guy.
Thank you, Chair. I'm obviously I'm not a member of this committee, but I just want to say thanks to everyone for coming in and presenting today. I was lucky enough to be invited when I was deputy mayor up to the Alley Theatre to experience this presentation for the very first time. I think it was up there, and we sat in a darkened room and heard the choir. They're singing about the darkened water, and it's coming through their houses and it pushing it out through and the kitchen and pushing it out. And whilst I am lucky enough that my house never flooded, I can sympathise with these families, because like myself and many other elected members in this room and members who aren't here today have experienced it with these families, especially connected around the Ivy Mead area, where we have watched families who have been left living in fear. Their mental health and well-being of these families has been seriously challenged, and along the way, some have managed to sell their houses, some have wanted to stay put because they love the area that they live in. But it's how much more they can put up of this, because we've 8 years now on from the 2017 flood, and we're still looking for answers along with these families about what process is going to be taken to actually try and sort out these issues. Hopefully, we are a few steps closer. I have to say that I was rather disappointed too with the setup last Friday. Last Thursday, where I thought we would have been allowed for families to actually speak to DFI and maybe get more solid answers to the questions that still spin about in their heads on a daily basis, especially when that heavy rain comes and the worry sets in that will my house flood again. But I think, look, the resilience groups are all doing great work. Probably none of them ever thought they would be experts in flooding the way they have become over the past number of years. And it's great that they are sharing their experiences and helping one another. And I think as council, we are more than happy to help out. I think it's something that even I know, speaking to a few other councillors now, when there is heavy rain, we think, are we going to get that call as well to come out and help out people, which we gladly do, but we hate to see the aftermath of another flood. So hopefully we can press the FI and so on, and basically getting the answers and getting the money and getting these problems sorted. But thank you, Chair. And thanks to the team for presenting today. It was all very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Guy. Councillor Donnelly.
Very good, Chair. And thank you for coming here today. And I have been involved in the past in helping communities out when flooding had occurred, and I've seen the devastation and the aftermath where, families have to pick up the pieces. But I couldn't imagine what it is to go through that. And you don't need, the answer isn't empathy or sympathy or even tears. You'd mentioned that the part that the water played, there was no politics in that, what the water does. But politics is playing every part in the lack of response, the lack of solution. And that's the reality. We shouldn't need a disaster like this. They break down barriers within our community. Whilst they're seeing all that as positives, and they are positives, the reality is that the will isn't there. They put a meaningful structures in place to prevent this from happening again. And there's only one, reason is the failure of the government. Whether you agree with the government or not, they have a responsibility to sort this out, and it's happened before, and there hasn't been, in my opinion, a meaningful response. But I commend you for coming here. I commend you for the work that you're doing together. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, and thanks, guys, for the presentation. One of the, Steve, you chatted there about the community, and I think it's my enemy's enemy is my friend is the situation that evolved there with all of the club groupings. As you're right to say, the Psalm Hall where the local flute band practice, having meetings in the next door GAA club and all of that sort of thing. So that developed out of that. One thing that I found particularly interesting was the visit to Ballina and flood alleviation. Floods are going to be there. We're going to have them. When I was going to primary school in the late 50s in Omagh, I remember the floods. My primary school is before the now tech was built. I remember the floods there and boats out rescuing people and everything else back then. I remember driving down into the valley in Castledurg when I started teaching in the high school, coming down over the hill, looking down, and the whole valley basically flooded up to the doors, basically, of the school that I was going to teach in. And of course, 2017 wasn't the first flood in Newton Stewart. Quite a few floods have occurred there. And that whole idea of flood alleviation, I feel, is something that needs to be further pursued. I've been told that in England, for example, rather than constricting rivers, their bank's been taken down now to allow rivers to overflow into surrounding countryside before they hit populated areas. And that sort of thing, we hear tell of beavers being released to create beaver dams and create the rush and all of that sort of solution. So the Ballina one really does appeal to me. And perhaps, can you give an indication of who actually funds that? Where's the funding? Where's the funding for the Ballina flood alleviation come from? I have a couple other things, so if you can hold on that. The point is well made about the clubs and the impact that they have in the wider community. And Steve has already indicated there that a couple of houses, as you said, the big smoke down in Eglinton. And I'm sure, if Eglinton say they don't want the wall, we'll take it in Newton Stewart. If you can transfer that from the department, but I don't think that's going to happen. And I think, as Councillor Donnelly is referring to, their department look at value for money. That's what they're looking at, and they don't value, it's 12 houses, so it's a critical mass issue. They don't value the community infrastructure in the same way that they should be valuing there going forward. But, thank you for the presentation. We can only continue to lobby and try and persuade departments to do what they should be doing. There are alternatives to just building a wall. Definitely, there are areas where the wall is the solution, but there are other solutions that can be considered where they would suggest that a wall is too expensive, but there are other opportunities that could be taken. And in fact, sometimes, it's actually just down to pure maintenance will reduce the issue. It won't prevent it, but it will reduce it, or alternating courses. And I think, Steve, you know what I mean when I say that with regard to that particular scenario that you find yourself around the home and that area in Newton Stewart. But thanks very much for the presentation, and I would be interested in the funding at Ballina, and perhaps it's something that maybe council could consider taking a look at other alternatives. And I know, for example, in the city, Conor, you remember this, there was a proposal from DI, NI Water, was it, that there would be some sort of restriction of the deluge of water coming down into the Foyle? But I think that was actually abandoned as well.
Through you, Chair, that process is still ongoing in terms of SUDs. There are further discussions on how that might pan out.
Want to answer it, Juliet?
I'm speaking to other residents and not speaking to councillors or anything down there. In my understanding, it was the Office of Public Works. And the scheme that was designed in Ballina was basically the river went from a bit like Eglinton, a very hilly area, down to a low-lying area where there was a lake. Spate River, a bit like the Castle River and the Muff River in Eglinton. So they rise really fast after a downpour. And so the river comes down through the village, and everybody had their like screens up, you know, where they could put them in a flood event. But the proposal was to, when the river got to a certain height, it would overflow and nearly into a river, a different river, which would have lakes and holding ponds. It would still have water like outside of flooding, but there was paths and wildlife were being introduced and all this kind of stuff. So it sounded really interesting. At the point that we were down there, it hadn't been implemented, but they had just got the green light for it to go ahead. And how long ago was that? Last year? A year ago. So I don't know what stage it's at the minute, but it was Office of Public Works funded it. Thank you.
Sounds extremely interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Hulsey. Councillor Farrell.
Thanks for coming today, folks. These mics are a nightmare. So really, really moving presentation about flooding and the threat of flooding. You know, if there's really heavy rain, thankfully I live in a hill, so I'm grand. But I've just got one question. See, in terms of your list of asks, you had mentioned about, you know, flood resilience versus planning approvals that are granted by this council. And Karen had said that the letter that we're going to write to DFI about coming on here to speak about flooding, is it all DFI's responsibility, or is there stuff we could be doing in the house in terms of planning that could impact that?
Through you, Chair, members, I suppose Gillian made the point in terms of, I suppose, the planning committee considering applications that are coming forward. Members are aware that we have recently updated our local development plan, and that certainly has been updated. And we have done some engagement with members, and we'll do more engagement in terms of the updated policies. But certainly that's something that we can make the planning team and the planning committee aware of as well. So thanks.
Again, I'm not on planning. I haven't read the LDP cover to cover, but are there stronger measures in there in comparison to the document that has been used for the last whatever number of years?
They have been updated, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, Steve.
Could I just make a point against that thought on planning? Planning allowed me to extend my house in 2006. In 2000 and, well, sometime before 2017, I was told in no uncertain terms by a guy from DFI Rivers, I can't remember his name, that I should never have built a house in the middle of the floodplain. You know, there's a contradiction there. I know climate issues are, you know, the pace that the climate is changing is, you know, kind of bewildering, but, you know, those two don't add up.
All I was going to say that planning, the function transferred to local councils in 2015, I believe, and it was departmental decisions prior to that. So again, not an expert in planning, but when it wouldn't have been us that would have approved that, I don't think.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. You know, it's such a emotive topic, as we all know. Like, and all I can tell you as chair here, we raise it every month. I'll keep raising it every month. I'll keep bringing it up and trying my best. We will bring DFA in. We will ask them the questions on behalf of the residents, and we'll continue to do that, you know. So thank you all so much. So the next item on the agenda is matters arising from the open minutes of the Environment and Regeneration Committee held on Wednesday, the 10th of September, pages 11 to 20. Is anybody? Oh. So the next item on the agenda is the Boom Hall Master Plan engagement, and Karen's going to take this.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report, members, is to seek members' endorsement of the engagement feedback from the emerging Boom Hall Master Plan. Members will recall that they had a presentation on the Boom Hall Master Plan in April's committee in 2024. And that we have been working to develop the master plan since that, and the steps involved in that are laid out in the background to your report today. Members, the final step, step 5, was to test the master plan with the wider audiences, and members, officers facilitated a face-to-face residents engagement process on the 4th of September. And members, that focused on the regeneration plans for the landscape parkland, and not in particular on the future plans for Boom Hall House that are being pursued by the Boom Hall Trust. Members, there was very good engagement in that, with 62 participant attendances and very good face-to-face engagement. And the appendix gives some details of that particular engagement and the views of some of the participants. So members, there were a number of actions that the team have suggested following that in terms of potential upgrades, etc., to the Boom Hall Master Plan. And members are also aware that in June of this year at the committee, members had a deputation by Boom Hall Trust who sought some clarification in relation to the potential for them to lease the site, and members, officers are working with the trust and indeed on that issue, and will bring a further report in due course in relation to that. So members, today we're asking you to endorse the engagement and the feedback from residents, and I'm happy to take any comments or questions member have in relation to that. Thanks.
Councillor Farrell. Alderman Middleton online.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in, and thank you, Karen, for the report. The report is very much welcome, and it was great to see mostly very positive feedback from a good number of persons asked. We are looking forward to all the works that are going to be carried out when the time comes, and we're happy to endorse the report as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Middleton. Councillor Farrell.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks, Karen, for the report. Like Alderman Middleton, happy to endorse the contents. I think, the site at Boom Hall offers so much opportunity, and it's really heartening to see the time, effort, and dedication we're taking to get this right. We're consulting extensively, and that's really, really important. And I'm not going to comment on all the actions, but the one for me, the number 8, the feasibility of adding, river access opportunities, that'll be amazing. So I'm looking forward to seeing the updated master plan, but it's a real step in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farrell. Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Karen, for the report. I attended the engagement, and it was very busy when we were there at that time. A lot of engagement, and I know the council officers were very impressed by what they were hearing from people who had grown up around the site and in some cases had worked on it, elderly people. So it was great. And just to agree with Rory, there's great potential with everybody working collaboratively with Boom Hall Trust, especially, that they're still there. And it was, I think, for a while maybe they thought that their views weren't being listened to in some of the discussions that you may have had with them, but it's great to see that collaborative work going on, and it's great to see these steps, and hopefully they're implemented. So all very positive. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Okay. Everybody's content with that, anyway? Yeah, so we'll move on to number 9 on the item on the agenda, Strabane Urban Park. Karen again.
Thank you, Chair. Members, the purpose of this report is to update members on a planned public consultation event for the proposed skate park facility at land beside Melvin Sports Complex. And members, the background of the report is laid out in your report, and members will be aware of previous public consultation in relation to this issue, and indeed that members approved £20,000 to be set aside to progress detailed design in terms of this particular project. Members, that's a typo in your paper at 3.1. That's actually Strabane. The £20,000 was set aside for. We members also set aside budget for a skate park in Derry as well. So members, just to update that council have procured the services of a specialist skateboard park designer and work closely with the Strabane Skate Park Committee on the co-design of the facility, and the copy of the designs are attached at your pack today at Appendix 2. And members, we have booked Melvin Sports Centre to host a public engagement on the 28th of October from 10:30 a.m. to 9 p.m. to disseminate the designs to the wider public and get their feedback on the proposals. So members, and just to update you in terms of the skate park in Derry, there is a new skate park group established to revisit the Derry Skate Park project. Members, you'll be aware over the years we'd brought a number of potential proposals for a skate park in Derry, but none of them were suitable for members at that time. And therefore, we are actually working with the skate park group, and we have a potential proposal which we'll bring to members in due course in terms of that. So members, in terms of today's proposal, we are asking members to endorse the emerging designs for the Strabane Skate Park at Melvin, and the subject to the public outcome, and we will bring a report back to committee to share the engagement findings. Thank you, Chair. Happy to take any comments.
Thank you, Karen. Councillor Boggs.
Chair, and thank you, Karen, for the report as well. And I'm happy to propose the recommendation to endorse the designs pending the public consultation. And I just want to take the opportunity again to thank all those who have been involved so far. It has been very much driven by local skaters. I didn't realise there were so many of them, about Strabane, but there is, and they're very adamant to see this project over the line. So I just want to thank them again for the contribution that they have played, and encourage people to attend the consultation. I know there are some concerns from some residents close that it may not be the best location, and I know we had that with the previous site that we looked at, and I think any site that we would pick up, there are always going to be concerns, but it's how we maybe address them at their earliest opportunity. So we'll just use the opportunity to encourage everybody, regardless of their view or opinion on it, to attend the consultation. Can I just ask for a bit of clarity in relation to Appendix 1 and the kind of initial consultation that was done out, highlights in number 1 there, the concept design, the existing play park, and that's going to be expanded. My understanding was that was going to be done alongside this, but maybe as 2 separate. Can I just ask for some clarity as to the design element of that expansion and upgrade of that play park, in line with we have very exciting designs for the skate park itself, but how does that tie in? I know the Strabane Design Mills Greenway proposal also has an element to play in all this, so just for a bit of clarity of how the 3 kind of tie together and what stage they're all at. But thank you very much for the report.
Yeah, through you, Chair. Members, the team are still working in relation to the play park. As you know, members, we've taken forward a number of prioritised play projects through the rates estimates recently, and they are take a priority at the minute. So this project will obviously catch up at a time, but the team will spatially make sure that they fit together, but they're not ready for consultation at the same time at the minute, but the team are fully aware of the need to integrate the 3 projects, so that's being taken on board.
Perfect. Thanks, Karen. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Karen, and thank you, Councillor Boggs. Councillor Farrell.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Karen. Happy to second the proposal on behalf of the SDLP. I think it's really, really good news for the skating fraternity in Strabane. I've only got one question, and unsurprisingly, it's about Derry. So it's good that the skate park group has been, re-established, or it's going to be revisited. Have you got any timescales in terms of realistically when we would have similar detailed designs with a site location for Derry? And is the 20 grand still ring fenced in the budget? Thank you.
Through you, Chair, members, yes, the budget is still ring fenced. Officers have been working on a potential proposal. We have a potential pathway to develop a detailed design should members agree that proposal. So we intend to bring a report back probably in the next couple of months to members to seek your endorsement in relation to that. But certainly there definitely, compared to, I suppose members will be aware that there were a number of locations put forward in the past that weren't acceptable to local residents, weren't acceptable to members, but we think that potentially we may have found a solution. But I need to just bring that back once we develop it up in a little bit more detail.
Thank you, Karen, and thank you, Councillor Farrell. Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to second the proposal, but very happy to endorse it. And I think it would also be appropriate to acknowledge the work, the early work done on this by Councillor Jason Barr, who was involved a lot at the beginning of the overall project and bringing this forward to Council. It's great to see this sort of facility developing, particularly as skateboarding is now a mainstream sport, as accepted as an Olympic sport, and indeed sport and I will be involved. Given that it's also a sport with probably more hazards than some other sports because of the nature of the sport. And there are obviously, because it's a mainstream sport now, there are controlling bodies, etc., that operate within the sport. But at the same time, the nature of the sport is freestyle, basically. Will there be within the park, when it is developed, supervision, shall we say, for those using the park? I know when this first came to the attention of the Old Strabane District Council, one of the big issues against the old council providing this sort of facility was the exorbitant cost, for example, of insurance for the users of such a facility. So as this is now a council facility, in the same way as a local pitch, which you would hire to use, etc., how is that end of the risk going to be dealt with going forward? Thank you.
Yeah, through you, Chair. Members, we're at the early stage of the development at this stage in the outline, sort of, I suppose, design, etc. All of those issues in terms of, how we learn from best practice elsewhere, how other people manage these facilities, pulling together any potential revenue implications of any of our facilities, that will all be developed in the months ahead as part of the wider case. Obviously, we have set aside money for the initial detailed design. Just to remind members, we have not got a budget yet to actually construct the project, and always with any of these projects that we take forward, the revenue implications of them will need to be explored in a lot of detail. What I can say is, I suppose since I suppose the former Strabane District Council days, there's been quite a lot of further good best practice and learning, etc., in terms of how these facilities operate and how they develop, which we can take on board. And therefore, the design itself is relevant, as indeed, the different models of how we would actually operate them and do the risk assessments, etc. So members, that's obviously something that we have focused on in the design of any capital project these days, is the revenue implications moving on. So we will, update members as we get further through the process before members make any decisions in terms of funding, etc.
Chair, can I just come back and say that I welcome the reassurance that I've just heard, and hopefully, in a couple of years' time, we'll have Olympians in skateboarding coming out of the park in Strabane. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey, and thank you, Karen. Item 10 now of the agenda, street naming and property naming. Connor?
So proposed.
Seconded.
The next item is the White Butterfly Foundation Memorial within the City Cemetery. Again, it's Connor.
Thanks, Chair. This is to advise and seek members' recommendations with regard to a request you see from the White Butterfly Foundation to erect a memorial in support of mothers who have suffered baby loss or the loss of a child within the Garden of Angels at the City Cemetery. Members will know that Council operate a number of cemeteries across the city and district, and in consideration of that, members previously endorsed the Cemetery Management Manual setting out how those should operate, and including issues related to the erection of headstones and memorials. More recently, the cemetery section received an application and correspondence from the White Butterfly Foundation seeking permission to erect a memorial in support of mothers and families that have suffered baby loss or the loss of a child. The foundation will engage directly with local families to design and make the installation, which will then be erected for display within the Garden of Angels within the cemetery. The cemetery team have reviewed the application and are content that the proposed memorial complies with the requirements as set out in the Cemetery Management Manual, and that space can be identified within the cemetery to accommodate the installation. The foundation will meet all of the costs associated with the installation and maintenance of the piece. Consequently, members are asked to approve the request by the White Butterfly Foundation to erect a memorial within the Garden of Angels at the City Cemetery. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Connor. Alderman Middleton, online.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in. I'm happy to propose this application. Today is the final day of Baby Loss Awareness Week for this year, so it is really very fitting that this is being brought forward to our committee today also. This week has been about remembering, and it's been about standing together with every parent, mother or father who has experienced loss, and to remind those who have faced such a devastating loss that you're not alone and you do not need to walk this path alone. Could I please ask that it be relayed back to the foundation that when they are speaking with families and doing their consultation, that they consider including miscarriage as part of the memorial. Often the mothers and fathers of those who have suffered early pregnancy loss and miscarriage loss don't have a physical place to reflect, to grieve, or to remember. And I know this because I am 1 in 4. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Middleton.
Through you, Chair, members, we're happy to do that.
Councillor McGinley.
Very good, Chair, and thanks for the report. Happy to second the recommendation that is contained within it, and also to endorse the work of the White Butterfly Foundation. Now, I don't know if it's a typo in the report, but 1.1 mentions a memorial in support of mothers. 3.1 mentions a memorial in support of mothers and families, and there doesn't appear to be any mention of fathers. And I just know from our experience and my family, and it's a wee bit emotional because this weekend is the first anniversary of the passing of my nephew, and it's something that we have to recognise. But I think it's also important that the impact that it has on fathers is sometimes not recognised as much in the wider family circle. So if we can just make sure that, taking on board what Alderman Middleton has said, that fathers are contained with it. I'm sure that the White Butterfly Foundation would do that, but it was just something that stuck out to me when I was reading through the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McGinley. That's fine. Councillor McGinley, thank you. Alderman Kerrigan.
Thank you very much, Chair, for allowing me in, and concur that a seat item has already been put forward, proposed and seconded there. But again, supportive of the issue, and thank thank Conor as well as Alderman Middleton raised in regards to Baby Loss Awareness Week and for the work that's undertaken there in regards to getting the castle again, Castleair, lit up. And I do very much appreciate that. Can I just request there that Conor maybe or could just that wee cemetery policy be circulated back to, well, can it be recirculated out to members, because there's a wee issue, but I'll speak to Conor offline in regards to it, in regards to Castleair, and I'm sure he's aware of it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Kerrigan. That's fine. Alderman Hussey.
Firstly, can I say I completely agree with Councillor McGinley. It's something that affects both parents and indeed the entire family, the family circle, when this occurs. And again, that's personal experience. On the issue of baby loss again, I understand there was some sort of a hiccup with regard to the lighting of the castle, and I'm delighted that that has been resolved. And I will also be seeking a quick chat with Conor after this meeting on the same issue that I suspect Keith is seeking to address him on. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey. The next item on the agenda is bus shelters in the Faughan area, and Conor's going to take that.
Thanks, Chair. Again, it's to seek members' approval with regard to a request from the Badian District Ulster Scots Development Association to enhance 5-number existing council-owned bus shelters across the Faughan area. Members will be aware that council provides and maintains bus shelters across the city and district, with the majority of these located within rural communities. These shelters are a vital component in connecting rural communities and are in use on a daily basis. In consideration of this, Council has received a request from the Badian District Ulster Scots Development Association to enhance 5 existing bus shelters. The association has secured funding to take forward this project on a similar basis to previous schemes approved by Council, most recently a number of shelters within the Ballyard and Shantallow areas. The associations are keen to engage with the communities in each of their respective areas to design bespoke artworks that reflect local diversity, and have included details of this within their application to Council enclosed as Appendix 1. The association have secured the funding for the scheme and are keen that Council support the initiative by requesting that Council agree to the enhancement of the selected bus shelters. Some minor preparatory works will need to be carried out to 3 of the proposed shelters, as they display some graffiti, rust, and require maintenance, and Council will undertake this as part of the planned maintenance work. All enhancement work will be carried out by the groups connected to the association at no cost to Council. The artwork designs will be directly painted onto the shelters by local artist Carol Porter from UV Arts, and as again details of this are closed with Appendix 1. On completion, the scheme will significantly improve the visual appearance of these shelters at minimal expense to Council for the benefit of residents and visitors. The local community group will carry out the enhancement work and use local groups to maintain the bus shelters when complete. And Council technical staff will monitor the enhancement work to ensure that the structural integrity of each bus shelter and the design and the works are agreed as between the association and Council. And members are therefore asked to endorse and support the application by Badian District Ulster Scots Development Association with regard to the enhancement of 5 bus shelters within the Faughan area. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Conor. Alderman Middleton.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in, and thank you, Conor, for the report, which I'm very, very happy to propose and endorse. I am so excited after over a year since I was first approached by young people and Georgina Keema-Carter to see this project being so close to becoming a reality. So for context, I was initially approached by young people, which I think is just the best thing ever, who wanted to engage in a project around civic pride and Brady to redo the dilapidated bus shelter in a manner that reflected theirs and the area's culture, their heritage and their identity. I have worked closely with Georgina and the young people since. Even when I was ill in hospital, this project means so much to our young people. This project has now been expanded to include other areas across the Faughan, and this project has brought young people together to create and present their designs, which will be formalised and installed by an artist across Brady, Claudy, Eglinton, Aina, New Buildings, and I know there's Letters and Donny Group involved also, but they don't have a bus shelter. So major thanks to our young people district-wide for their vision and their passion for the beautiful Faughan, to Council's Grantia team and to Graham McCormick for all his help. I just cannot wait to see the finished design when they're on the bus shelters, and I can't wait to do the rural trail. Well done to all our young people and all involved. I am so proud of you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Milton. Councillor Fleming.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to second the proposal. I want to say thanks to all of the groups that were involved in this excellent project, and I'm looking forward to seeing the finished articles. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fleming. And my own note for being councillor out there too. It's a good project. There's been projects done similar in Strathfoyle, you know, where the bus stops were updated by the U-boats and history of the area, you know, and it's a very good thing. And at the time, people said, "Oh, they'll be still damaged and all the rest." They haven't been damaged since they went in, so which is a really good thing, you know. So thank you. Sorry, Councillor Donnelly.
Apologies, Chair, I didn't plan, but scooting through it earlier, there's Letter St. Tony's down there, but am I right, there's no bus shelter? And if that's true, what's the story? Is there plans to put a bus shelter or maybe get it done there to join with the hours?
Through you, Chair, members, we can find out, like we always have a list of areas that want bus shelters, a very limited budget that we have, and we try and do the best that we can with the limited budget that we have, but we can certainly look into that. I'm just not sure today.
Maybe if there isn't a bus shelter, maybe there's a wall or something else there that maybe they could get tied into too, with something for council officers to look at. And
yeah, happy to consider it.
That's, I believe, it's what's happening, Councillor Donnelly. The Lear St. Tony Community Centre and community thing are engaging in that, you know, so I think that's the idea. So the next items are up for matters of information, but the first one is item 13, the judicial review the decision to issue manual prospecting licence, and Karen's going to take this briefly.
Yeah, through you, Chair, members, it's just very quickly to update members. You will be aware of our discussions at Council in June, when Council resolved that Council instructs Council to prepare a pre-action protocol letter, consider the matter further upon receipt of response. And members, we issued the pre-action protocol letter on the 1st of August. And members, we further updated elected members in September at our council meeting. And just to update members that on the 1st of October, the Department for Economy confirmed that Dalradian Gold Limited had relinquished the licences that had issued relating to our area, and they sought the judicial review proceedings to be dismissed as academic in light of the fact the licence was relinquished, and recognised that the proceedings had been properly brought by council, and so were agreeable to pay the council's costs in respect of the application for judicial review. And members, the costs incurred to date are in and around £11,220. Some other costs have been incurred, but they will be within the original perceived budget that members had been advised of in around 20,000. So members, it's just to note that today for your information.
Thank you, Karen. Councillor Farrell.
Just really briefly, I think it's good news that those licenses have been relinquished. I know we had a conversation at this meeting last month. We had a further conversation at full council. So it's good news. So there won't be any mineral prospecting, and we get our 11 grand back. So happy days.
Thank you, Councillor Farrell. So the next items, I'll just go through each one at a time. So number 14 is the disabled parking bays. Everybody happy? The flooding update, so we had the flooding there, so I think we've talked about that. Number 16 is the Maboy update. Everybody okay? Number 17 is the Newgate Apartments update.
Me, please, Chair.
Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Chair, for letting me in again, and thank you for the report which was provided in the pack. The DUP very much welcome this project, which is so important in terms of long-term sustainability, as well as Newgate's overall vision. I commend Brian, all of the Newgate team, and all those involved in this project. And I do know that Gary Middleton, MLA, has been working closely with Newgate to secure the funding for this. So as a party, we're very, very happy to see this brought forward. And again, really, really pleased for the work that's been carried out. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Middleton. Karen?
Yep, through you, Chair. Members, just a further update in relation to this particular project, and they advise that this afternoon we did actually appoint the contractor to proceed with this particular construction. So hopefully we will see some movement on that in the next few weeks. It's certainly been complex getting it to this stage, and it's great to see. So we're delighted to have appointed the contractor this afternoon.
That's great, Karen. Councillor Duffy, you want to come on under item 15, the flooding?
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I wasn't sure there if anybody else came in on it. We were at the open meeting what was held at the Foyle Arena there on the day before yesterday, and it was very good to see the progress being made in the plans. We know it's like pre-business plan, but progress has been made nonetheless, and it was good to see the design stages and the things that they're going to have in place for both Eglinton and of course Drumahoe. During the initial stage of the meeting, there was a introduction and I suppose the more technical side of stuff, explanation, and there was a heavy focus on the likes of value for money and stuff like that. I think it just needs said that when we're dealing with people's homes and stuff that they can no longer replace due to flooding, we shouldn't be focusing on the likes of value for money because people can't replace some stuff and people's homes are destroyed. So it was just on that. It was a bit disappointing, but nonetheless, it was very good to see, as I say, the designs and so on. But yeah, that's it. Just wanted to mention.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Item 18, the new cemetery, the Millennium Update. Sorry. Number 18 is Newton Stewart Town Centre Regeneration Framework. Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Chair. Can I welcome the report? And as it says at the beginning, this is a 5 to 10 year vision to revitalise the town centre. I note in the finance section 4.5, delivery of all projects remains subject to available external funding streams. There are elements within that council can contribute into, and I'm presuming that council is doing so. And in fact, if we look at the very first streetscape, street furniture replacement complete, new bins to be installed, I mean that's council stuff that's going in there as well, on top of the external funding that's being sought. Is there any indication of funding that could become available going forward to enable the enactment of the vision, shall we say? It's all very welcome, and I mean, I suppose this whole thing would have kicked off quite some time ago when Kieran Maguire was still a councillor with myself, covering the Derg area, and I know that Caroline takes a particular interest in it as well. So it's all very welcome. The recommendations, absolutely no problem with the recommendation. We note the contents, but we've got to be, as it says, active and ongoing engagement, not alone with the stakeholders, but with the potential financing element of the overall suggestions within the plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey. Tony?
Thank you, Ian, through the chair, Alderman Hussey. Your point that you make in relation to available funding streams is an important one. You may be aware from last month's committee that this committee had signed off on a consultation response to the new Shape and Sustainable Places programme, which DARA, DFC and DFI are bringing forward. And that represents a real opportunity for towns like Newton Stewart and for those settlements of under 5,000 in population haven't been able to access urban regeneration type funding previously. So I think that the fact that we have a regeneration framework where there's firstly a vision for a series of actions, places us in a good position in terms of being available and ready to avail of opportunities coming from that programme. And I know that through our regular engagement with the stakeholders, that they are keen, just like yourselves, that we are identifying those funding streams and bringing forward those projects that we can't as council necessarily fund ourselves. Thank you.
Sure, just a quick response to that. I welcome Tony's response there. And as all councillors are saying, it was the great advantage of having shovel-ready projects there and suggestions there, and hopefully that'll all be coming to fruition. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey. Councillor Devine.
Good Chair. I welcome the work that's progressing there in Newton Stewart and the framework and the actions that have been outlined. I suppose one of the things that I know has been progressed is a parking, and that's something that's a big issue in Newton Stewart that's raised quite often, probably with all of the reps, I'm sure, and it was raised again this week. So we're looking forward to that report coming out on the car park study there. I have a couple of questions as well, and Derek has actually just asked one of them. So thank you for covering that, Tony. I think it is important that we make sure that we're keeping abreast of whatever funding opportunities are out there. Just a couple of other things. In terms of engagement with the stakeholders group, I'm keen to know what the feedback is coming from them in terms of the progress that we're making. I wanted to ask just about the digital hub application as well that has been put forward for the 2000 centre there. Do we have any idea of when we would hope to get a response on whether that's been approved or not? I know that's sort of the second time that application's gone in. Also, do we have any statistics in terms of from the tourism perspective on the effectiveness of the promotions that are going on with Visit Derry and other avenues? Do we get any feedback on any of that? And my final question, I suppose I welcome the work that's happened around Vaughan's Home, but an issue has been raised with me in relation to the accessibility of the boardwalk there at Vaughan's Home. That I think is mainly to be used as a disability-friendly fishing platform. That has not been able to be accessed since July of this year, and I have been in touch with council officers, and there's been about a to and fro on whether it's Rivers Agency or whether it's council. So I would ask, I suppose, is there any update on that? And also that I would ask that officers would please maybe make that a priority to have that overgrowth cut back there so that people can actually access the fishing platform there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Devine. Tony.
Okay, thank you, Chair, and thanks, Councillor Devine, as well, for your comments. In relation to your first question, which was just the feedback from the stakeholders, to my knowledge anyway, and I suppose that's from not just the quarterly meetings, but also the fact that we are in regular contact with them across a number of projects which emerge from those meetings, is that the feedback appears to be positive among the Heritage Group, the traders, and also the Newton Stewart 2000 Centre. And I think it's very much a case of they can see the fact that there is an officer team across the council, not just this department, but our business and a culture department and health and communities, who are now actively engaging and going away from those meetings and following up on a series of actions, but also developing projects in partnership with them as well. And you'll be aware, Councillor Devine, just even on in terms of a smaller scale project, but nonetheless significant, where we've been working with the community stakeholders to get an arrangement up and running with HED to get access into the castle. And that's just one example of where the work in progress isn't just involving council officers, but we're bringing together and bringing with us those stakeholders as well. So I would like to think up to this point anyway that those positive relationships have been there, and you'll know obviously the journey we have been working proactively with stakeholders to get to this point. So I hope that that will continue, and clearly the expectation will be that we continue to deliver as well, and you'll be aware of our commitment around that. In relation to your questions in terms of digital hub progress, unfortunately I'm not in a position to respond to that now, but I'll follow up with our colleagues in our business and culture team, and I think it might be worthy of bringing back just a very brief update report for next month, which actually responds to not only that question, but also any statistics that we might have from a tourism perspective, and also that matter around Vaughan's Home and Efficient platform. So I think it'd be best, Chair, that obviously we go back, follow up on those, and bring back a brief report on each of those points. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Alderman Carrigan, online.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair. Apologies that mute button just wasn't going quick enough there for me. No, very much appreciated for the project. And again, Alderman Hussain and Caroline have touched on the points there, and Tony, you have answered them well. So, and it is the whole process of trying to get to the stage where we have shovel-ready projects that if funding does come up, such as putting back to Castlereagh in regards to the UK level funding, which was available at the time and which we were successful in getting for works in Castlereagh, and it's getting to that stage for Newton Stewart as well. And I'm very pleased that there has been a level of work there. Just a couple of very quick ones, Tony, here, and they're reasonably straightforward. Are you content enough with the engagement there? Because I'd got a feeling from some individuals that maybe not. Every group is the engagement content enough with the engagement that you're getting from all of the different groups, and in regards to the stakeholders there, because there seems to be a wee bit of a difficulty between some of them. And then, as well as that, I suppose it's if I missed it in that report, or maybe I've went through it and maybe I've missed it there, this will fall into greenways as well, be included in that, because there are various pieces in there in Newton that are kind of neglected. I do feel there is capacity for that, or maybe I've just missed that when I've went through that report, Tony. But maybe that'll fall under tourism end of thing, or and then just the I suppose it has been touched then in regards to the funding stream and having those projects ready. So no, but other than that, I do thank you very much for all the work, and it really is encouraging. And I do think the individuals that we are meeting are more encouraged that there does seem to be council sitting up and taking note of getting something done in the town, because it's at the edge of the council boundary. And I mean, to be truthful, other ones in Newton do look more towards Omagh and things like that, rather than even looking to Strabane or looking down to the city. So as I say, it's good to try and see that the council here, this is the council that covers this area, and the council looking to do things in Newton Stewart. So much appreciated for that. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, before Tony comes in, can I just come in on something that Councillor Kerrigan did raise there, and that's the stakeholder issue. You referred to the stakeholders group, and then we talk about our engagement with stakeholders. Are they necessarily the same? There is a recognised stakeholders group, and Caroline, myself, and Keith were at a meeting, and the feeling was that the stakeholders group was Main Street, whereas we know you've mentioned there Newton Stewart 2000. We talk about Vaughan's Home. There are the sports clubs and the cultural organisations, etc., down there. So the stakeholders group, I accept, seems to be a business group, but then there's the wider issue of stakeholders involved in the whole process. Can that be clarified? I think falls into the same remit as what Keith was asking there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey and Kerrigan, and through the Chair. Yeah, and I think it's probably in answering the questions that Alderman Kerrigan has raised, it's probably important that I do clarify just that whole meaning of the stakeholders. Clearly, the stakeholders that we're referring to is the town centre stakeholder group, and we've been very clear, even within the regeneration framework, that our interest and our focus is in and around the town centre per se, which is Main Street and some of the surrounding commercial streets. given, I suppose, the strong interest from the traders group, also the fact that we sit right within a conservation area where there's a really strong heritage offering, and the fact that the Newton Stewart 2000 Centre also feel that they are an active part and can contribute to the health and vitality of the town centre. That is a group that we have established over the past couple of years now, and which I believe is working very well. And just to pick up on Alderman Kerrigan's queries, I'm not detecting any issues among those partners with whom we meet with regularly and engage. But if there are, then I'm more than happy, obviously, for you to maybe speak to me outside of this meeting, and we can maybe, I suppose, focus on that a little bit further. So hopefully that helps to clarify that this is really much town centre focused, and it doesn't intend to overlap or clash with any other existing groups that are out there that look at the wider community interests of Newton Stewart, but ours is mainly the town centre. So that's, I suppose, the response in relation to that one. I suppose just finally, in terms of the other question that Alderman Kerrigan has raised in relation to greenways, yeah, it's not explicitly contained within this report, and I think what we'll do, if you're content, members, we will add this as part of that update as well too, in terms of any updates in relation to greenways that might be relevant in the context of the framework. And just to concur with Alderman Kerrigan also in relation to funding, we're very keen and committed to ensuring that we can have projects shovel ready, and hopefully when the new Shape and Sustainable Places project and indeed others come out, that we are as shovel ready as we can be to go after those. Thank you.
Yeah, through you, Chair. Members, just to add to that, you know, if there are any other stakeholders who need to engage with Council on any other issues, then please point them in our direction. And if it's not, as Tony had said, the focus on this particular issue is in and around regeneration, which primarily relates to, I suppose, business and heritage and physical regeneration. But if there are any other issues in relation to health and community issues or any other wider issues, then members, if there's stakeholders who want to engage with Council, please send them our way and we can signpost them accordingly to the right team. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Karen and Tony. The next item on the agenda is number 19, the new cemetery Mullinan update.
Through you, Chair. Members, just very quickly to pick up on this in terms of progress, in terms of the new cemetery at Mullinan. Members, you will be aware that works commenced on site in March of this year, and some members did avail of a site visit in July to review progress. Just to update members that the project will be substantially complete towards the latter part of this year, with all works expected to complete fully in early 2026. And members, you may wish to consider a further site visit to review progress in advance of the works completing. And just also, members, to update you that, as you are aware, the capacity for new openings at the current city cemetery is diminishing on a weekly basis. We believe we have potential capacity within that cemetery until approximately spring of 2026. Members, what we are planning to do is, once the city cemetery at Mullinan is available, to offer families the option of having relatives interred at Mullinan as an alternative to the existing city cemetery, and to provide a bit more choice for them. So members, it's just to note the contents, and we're happy to invite and or organise a further visit to the new cemetery for members as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Councillor Riley online.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, for bringing me in. Thanks to Karen for that update. I suppose just a few additional questions from my point of view. First of all, I do think it would be useful to do an additional site visit for interested members. You know, as we approach the completion of the new cemetery construction, but I would also ask that type of familiarization visit be extended out to those in the undertaking industry who would also want to be familiar with the sites, and also if we could have any update or any information in relation to other transport providers, the likes of Transleak, the likes of taxi companies, etc., who will be dealing with additional interest from our citizens in travelling out to that location. So any update on that would be appreciated. And then to tag on something, Chair, with your permission onto the item, I'm conscious that there has been a resurfacing plan of work for a number of the council cemeteries across the district. So just wondering if there's any update on the resurfacing plans for some of the other cemeteries in our council area. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, through you, Chair, members, certainly engagement with funeral directors has been ongoing since this project began, and indeed we intend to do very significant work with them in terms of preparations for the new cemetery opening, and indeed with churches, etc., in order to make sure that they're fully aware of the new cemetery and they're as ready as we are for the facility opening. We have engaged with TransLink and will engage again as we get closer with other transport bodies, etc. It's a good point in terms of taxis as well. And I'll bring Conor in terms of the resurfacing.
Thanks. Members previously approved through the Capital Works Programme monies to resurface a number of cemeteries, so that includes City Cemetery, Ballyone, Strabane, and other works at Mountcastle. We have are in the process of putting that out to tender at the moment, so hopefully that will go out within the next number of weeks. And obviously, subject to the procurement process, we will commence those works as soon as we can. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Conor. Councillor McGinley.
Good, Chair, and Councillor Reilly took my question from me in terms of resurfacing. But thanks for the update on that, Conor. It is something that's raised continuously with us, specifically in and around the city centre in that lower portion, where it's in really bad condition. So we're looking forward to seeing that resurfaced. And if it needs to be formally proposed, I don't know if it does, Karen, but in terms of the site visit, I was there for the last one, and I wouldn't mind getting out before it's open. So if you need a proposer to get that arranged, happy to do so.
Through you, Chair, members, we can organise that for members. Thanks.
Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Chair. It just struck me there that with regard to Karen had mentioned their engagement with churches, given the increasing diversity of population, has there been any engagement with non-Christian religions as to their requirements when it comes to burials?
Yep, there have been members, and in particular, we have a particular section of the cemetery that we've worked with the Muslim community on. So that will be accommodated, and we've been engaging with them in relation to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey. Thank you, Karen. The next item on the agenda is number 20. It's water quality issues in the Duncastle Road. Conor.
Chair, I just want to clarify a point on that. This is no impact on drinking water. The impact is on surface water that leaves the site and potentially for leach into other waterways. So that's the issue that has arisen and been identified by NEA. It's nothing to do with drinking water, it's simply surface water that has potential to be contaminated. But as an authority, we're keen to limit any impact and reduce the potential for contamination. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Conor. Alderman Middleton.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in, and thank you, Conor, for the report and also the reassurances around drinking water. It's good to see that we're having transparent information here, and it's good to see a proactive approach in place as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alderman Middleton. Next item is number 21, building control applications.
I just want to comment very briefly on this. I was quite surprised. So building control applications received in this financial year have a construction value of £135 million compared to the last 12 months and the last financial year of only 114 million. So that's massive, massive growth, really, really encouraging and great for the local economy. So I was just pleasantly surprised at that report. So good stuff.
Yeah, through you, Chair, members, I think this is the reason why we try to bring this report on a monthly basis, and then at an annual basis we also do that so that members can track, I suppose, the progress, because clearly in terms of planning applications they go through it may take some time, or sometimes they change and we get another one, etc. But normally with building control applications, that's real construction that's happening live, and it helps us to track the construction value of projects on the ground at any particular time. Sometimes it can be a little bit skewed if there's one particular major project, etc. But it does give us a fairly good indication of where we are in terms of development within the city. So it is always useful to do, and good to get members' feedback on it.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Councillor Farrell. We're moving on to confidential now. So we are. Do you want to, or we need somebody to propose to go into the confidential, Paul, and sign it? Yeah, thank you, Councillor Farrell. Does anybody want to take 5 minutes? Please.